Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another listener scary stories. This is the video series that I do that's kind of like a podcast, or you can listen to it like a podcast if you want. I get emails from people about their scary personal experiences and I read them off in a compilation in a video. If you have a scary story you would like to send me, scary stories do not have to be paranormal, although they can be anything weird that's happened to you like that, but it can also be near-death experiences, funny, scary stories, anything as long as it's a true story. You can send it to my email, HannahTheHorrible@yahoo.com. Make sure to put scary stories somewhere in the subject line so it goes to the right folder, and let me know if you want to remain anonymous or not. And that's it. Let's get right into it and start off with the first scary story. I'm very excited about this one because the first story we have is from somebody who wrote into me and they are a mortician. So excited. Okay. Hey there, Hannah. I'm a mortician from Texas. My YouTuber name is Barnes Ablaze. I have a mortuary science degree. I've been working in the death industry for almost 6 years. I now live in Denver and own a trade embalming service. The story I'm going to tell is from when I worked at a third-party crematory/embalming service in my hometown back in 2019. That facility gets roughly 3,000 plus calls per year, and I worked there for about 3 years. My schedule rotated in a 2-week cycle. I would be on call for 24 hours a day every other day. I would also be on call for 72-hour weekends on my long weeks, hence why I'm now an independent contractor. Don't blame you at all. That sounds really rough. I'll begin by explaining it was night when this happened, and it's not paranormal, more of a let's not meet vibe. I had one of the removal vehicles with me at my house. I got a call around 3 a.m. It was for a removal at a local hospital's ER. Easy enough. Just pick up and embalm them, then I could go back to bed. But alas, it never ends in going to bed. I love how casually you said that. Just pick them up, embalm them, and then go back to bed. I lived outside of city limits, so it took me about 20 minutes to get to where the hospital was. I take the hospital exit right off the main highway and come to a 4-way stop. To the left is the hospital. All I need to do is go underneath the highway. Then I need to turn left onto the service road. Finally, I could pull into the parking lot, then the ambulance bay, unload my cot, and go grab the gentleman that's awaiting my arrival. But when I looked to my left as I'm about to turn, I see a dually truck, the ones with double wheels on the back axle, barely rolling towards their stop sign. They're coming away from the hospital towards me. And then also see a man on foot wearing scrubs heading the same direction. Scrubs guy has a badge like he works at the hospital, and he's pulling up the hood of his zip-up jacket and he's walking very close to the edge of the sidewalk, away from the curb and the truck. I sit for a few seconds at my stop sign, taking in this scene. I realize that this giant truck has its driver's side window rolled down. A man has his left arm hanging out the window, making what seems to be very angry gestures towards the scrub-wearing guy that's walking on the sidewalk. Again, this is about 4 a.m. in a small-ish Texas town. This guy wearing scrubs is obviously just walking home to the apartments directly across the road from the hospital. So, to me, scrubs guy looks very uncomfortable. I immediately think to myself, okay, nah, fuck this angry guy and his shitty truck. Medical staff deal with enough, dude. What is this creep doing? Hard agree. Even if it wasn't a medical staff, pedestrians have the right of way. You cannot get mad at a pedestrian for taking the crosswalk and crossing the street. I'm sorry, but you're in a vehicle. You're in a giant weapon. Even if they're jaywalking, it still doesn't give you the right to hit them. Like, they still have the right of way. Sorry. Slow down. I decided to creep slowly during my left turn to make it so my van would be between them. Just because, whatever was happening, it didn't seem pleasant for Scrubs guy. I crept forward, pressing my van's brakes so that I got lined up with the truckman's driver's side window. Truckman was still hanging slightly out of it and started staring at me with his mouth open. Ew. Ew is right. I quickly looked in my right side mirror and saw that Scrubs guy was out of there, dashing through the field, almost to the apartment complex, thank goodness. I then held Truckman's gaze with the scowl of my own that was probably giving, "I've been up running calls for 15 hours straight, buddy. Try me." Can we be friends? Since Scrub Guy dipped towards his complex, I only had to hold Truckman's gaze for maybe 10 seconds. Then I slowly rolled my sleep-deprived ass on towards the hospital. I watched in utter delight and enjoyment as Truckman busts a bitch in the middle of that four-way stop and starts to follow me. I loved confrontations in my 20s. LOL. I'm 30 now and more chill. He must have thought I was some random woman in a minivan at 4 a.m. Okay, now I really want to be your friend. You seem very brave. That would not be me. I do not like that kind of confrontation. I would have done anything to not make eye contact with that guy. So in my head, I'm thinking this crusty bitch is about to find out once I pull in this ambulance bay, because normal cars aren't allowed to do that, but I was no ordinary van. I whip my van under the ambulance bay so the truck will open towards where this guy is trying to come up near me. He avoids the ambulance bay by driving to the left slightly and comes to a stop. He rolls down his passenger side window, then stops to gaze at in awe this time. I then match his gaze once again while the back of my van opens. There I stood at 4 a.m. in an all-black three-piece suit, 2 mortuary transport cots resting where the back seats would have been, and body bags filled the siding along the molding in the back of the van. I take a moment to cross my arms as an accent to my scowl. Truckman was blaring country music, fucking Texas, ew, LOL. And he was again staring at me with his mouth still open, another ew. I audibly chuckle and give Truckman a slight shrug on my shoulders to indicate that I'm unbothered by his aggression and overall crustiness. I then turned to yank a cot out of the van, grabbed a body bag, some black nitrile gloves, and then I gave Truckman one last glance and saw that his passenger side window was closing. Then he began pulling out of the hospital parking lot, driving back off into the night. I have no idea what the hell that guy was doing. He may have been drunk, I suppose, but the way he was gesturing / yelling at the Scrubs guy was creepy. I hope Scrubs guy knows I appreciate people like him and my husband who work in the medical field. I do too. Wow. See, yours is one of those stories that I read that you were a mortician and I just instantly added it to the list of things to read. I could care less what the story's about. If you're a mortician, I'm sure it's going to be good. Love this story. That's amazing. You are way more confrontational and way more brave than I am. I am terrified of people. And I also just, especially in Texas, I'm scared of confrontation here in Washington just because I'm afraid everybody has a gun in their car. And I'm sure that guy had a gun in his car. He was driving a truck and he was in Texas. So you are very brave. I love that for you. But also just imagining the look on his face when you pull into the hospital and pull body bags out of the back of your car and you're in a suit. Oh man, funny. Love it. Thank you so much for writing in. Okay, our next story has another picture with it. Hello, if you decide to read this, please keep me anonymous. Hope you enjoy. This story takes place in May of 2022. My girlfriend and I were taking an anniversary trip to Cleveland, Ohio. We stopped at a small town on the way for us to take a break, eat, etc. While we were walking on Main Street, I felt my ring slip off my finger and I heard it hit the concrete. It was super hot, so the sweat probably made it slip right off. We immediately started looking for it, and when we couldn't find it, I burst into tears. The ring was my girlfriend's grandmother's ring and meant a lot to both of us. We had to give up looking for it after about an hour, and I was devastated that I had been so careless and lost it. Skipping forward about 2 days, we were in Cleveland and wanted to visit the Hasrat Angel, pictured below. I didn't take this photo, but it is way better than the one I took. We stopped by the Buckland Witchcraft Museum first and bought a small glass prison to give to her as an offering. Local legend says that this will draw her favor, protection, and luck. We drove to the cemetery and found her. She was incredibly gorgeous, and the way the artist sculpted her made it so that the rain would naturally create tear streaks down her face. We gave her the prism and left. We actually accidentally stayed there until the cemetery closed, so we were temporarily locked in and had to call the police to let us out. Fast forward about 3 or 4 months and I was deep cleaning my room. I pulled out my bed to dust under it, and the ring I had lost was under my bed. I don't know how it ended up there, as I know for a fact it was on my finger during the trip and that I lost it in that town we were in. My girlfriend and I both heard it hit the pavement, but there it was, just sitting under there. I and my girlfriend firmly believe the Hazarat angel brought it back to me and will always be incredibly grateful to her. Oh my God. I love that story. A long time ago, my dad got me these opal diamond earrings for Christmas one year when I was a teenager, and they were so cute and they were so special to me because I was like, they were tiny diamonds, but it didn't matter. Like, I was so excited to have diamonds of anything, right? I lost one of those earrings. I was positive it was gone forever. For years, that earring was missing. This isn't like your story because there was an explanation for where mine was. But I finally found it years later. It had fallen into my tape dispenser. So I saw it fall and I saw where it hit the floor, or where the area that it would have hit the floor, and heard it, but could not find it, right? Because it had fallen into the dispenser. Years later, found it. Isn't that so weird how stuff like that happens? However, anyway, I love that story. I love, again, that both you and your girlfriend both heard it hit the ground and it was gone. So maybe somebody was on your side and was able to find it for you. All right. The third story for today. Hi, Hannah. Love your channel. Keep it up. Thank you very much. First thing, English is not my native language, so I'm very sorry if at times my vocabulary is incorrect or my grammar is incomprehensible. Secondly, I want to mask everyone's identity, including mine, in this story because although some parts I know are absolutely true, it is a tale within the family, so not much proof is given to give it any credibility. Thank you for changing the names for me. Appreciate that. The location of the story is Spain, a few years after the Civil War. In my grandfather's town, there were quite a few clandestine executions around, and one of the places, even my grandfather witnessed one as a very young child that was in this small, semi-abandoned section of the town that connects directly to the sea. At the time, people were very religious and very superstitious, so as a result, rumors of a ghost haunting at our neighborhood start spreading around. These are quite specific. On weekends around midnight and up until the sunrise, people would hear whispers and hummings in the wind, and lights and figures would appear to the people brave enough to venture into the place. Cut to my grandfather. Let's call him John. John was around 14 years old and spending time at home one random Saturday night when his mother, in a mix between worried and mad about her husband, asked John to go look for him and ask if he was coming back home much later or not. Sure, where is he? Asked my grandpa. He is in the shore with his friends. Don't take too long, and waved him goodbye. My grandfather was always a non-believer. He didn't give half a shit about ghosts, God, or anything beyond palpable reality. He was aware of the rumors of the ghost, but couldn't care less, so he just went straight to the shore to look for his father. Let's call him Bob. So this is the grandfather when he was 14 years old. As he got into haunted ground, he started hearing hummings. The more deep they got, the more frequent and clearer they also became. Grandpa would start hearing things like leave, death, and sudden noises of things hitting each other. Needless to say, he was quite spooked at this point, but in his own words, was more scared about his mother's reaction in case he came back without having located his father. So he ventured deeper and deeper. The sounds would stop. Less worried about the ghost, he got into the final stretch of the place his father should be. After turning one final corner, a 2-meter tall figure with a blinding light on the top of it seemed to be waiting for him at the end of the street. My grandpa froze in place, and after a little while, the figure would start screeching and moving towards him quite fast, as if it was running. Freaked out, he turned around to start running, but in this movement, he tripped on his feet and fell to the ground. He turns his head to see the figure still moving towards him, and in the middle of trying to recover, a voice shouts from behind the apparition, "Christ, that's Bob's kid. Stop." The apparition slows down, and now that my grandpa can have a better look, he notices that it's just a man covered in a blanket with a torch on his head. "Oh, shoot. I am sorry, John. Your mother must be worried about your dad, right?" The man in the blanket says. "We will be done in an hour or so. Go tell your mom, all right? See ya, kid." So, for dramatic purposes, I left one important detail out of the story: my great-grandfather. During the post-war era of the Civil War, he was part of a smuggling network meant to bypass prohibitions on alcohol, tobacco, and, most importantly, food. One of the most important spots for him was the place where he would get the goods he was looking for to trade later. So he needed some way to keep people's eyes away from his deals. Maybe you can see where this is going. Knowing how superstitious the town was, he and his colleagues started spreading the rumor of a ghost haunting the place where they would meet up with the providers in order to keep people away from it. And to solidify the idea of it being real, they would start making sounds and have people give strange visual feedback whenever they saw someone getting close to the abandoned neighborhood. That was a twist I was not expecting. The most fun part of this whole story is that to this day, some local people still talk about the ghost of that section of the city as if it were 100% real and still around. We only share this story with friends and within the family. I have no interest in disputing people's experiences when, to be honest, the only proof we have of any of this is our grandfather's word and the fact that we know our great-grandfather was a smuggler and used sea routes for his deals. So anyway, that's the story. It doesn't need to be stated that all this made my grandpa even a harder skeptic about the paranormal, and even in his last days, he refused to take any priest seriously. Absolute legend, in my opinion. Rest in peace, Grandpa. Thanks for your time, and feel free to ask any questions about it if you wish to. Kind regards, Anonymous. I thought that was going to be a ghost story, and it wasn't. I love that. That's fantastic. What a legend, your great-grandfather. I am obsessed with this. So your great-grandfather, because your grandfather was the 14-year-old who went to go look for his father. So the guy he was looking for was Bob. Okay. Yeah. I get it. Okay. I love that story. That's so cute. I love that we think it's a ghost story and it's really just people messing with other people. I wonder how many ghost stories really that is the answer in the end. That it's not that it's really haunted. It's just people playing pranks on other people, but they never reveal the secret. Love that. All right, our fourth story for today starts, "Hi, Hannah. My name is Luca, and this is just a strange happening from when I worked in a nursing home back in 2017. There is not a single employee there who did not have a paranormal story, and I had more than a few, but this one has always sat with me. We cared for a man who lived at the very end of the hall of our building. For his and his family's privacy, I'm just going to refer to him as Mr. H. Mr. H came to us towards the end of his life. He had dementia and many other medical issues that he suffered from. Mr. H would often get confused, but still had his ability to walk. Often he would take all of his clothes off, leave his room, wander the halls. Even at times he would walk into other people's rooms. He also did this thing where rather than put on the call light, he would stand outside the door to his room and stare at us, naked or not. Oh God. As someone who has spent significant amount of time in the hospital before, let me tell you, I believe this 1000%. I know that you said that this was a retirement home or a nursing home, but still, any medical setting like that, there's always somebody who's ready to walk around naked, right? Don't need these hospital gowns. Unfortunately, Mr. H passed away late one night, but he did not leave with the coroner. A few of his belongings remained in his room as well until his daughter could pick them up. Every staff there said we would see Mr. H when we turned around. More than one night, I swear I saw him standing there at the very end of the hall, waving me down to him. Sometimes I would go, but often I was just too busy. I think what really convinced me that Mr. H had not left us, though, that was the day I heard a woman across the hall for him screaming for help. I went to her room to see that she had fell. Now, this wasn't totally uncommon for this woman. She was stubborn about her independence and often would try to walk on her own when she should have waited for an aid. She was very with it mentally, though. When I asked her what happened when she fell, she said she saw the man from across the hall walk into her room again. He was naked and mumbling. She went to... I love old people. She went to shoo him out and fell down. I asked her if she meant Mr. H and told her that he had died. She told me she knew what she saw. A few days after this, about a week after he died, his daughter came and picked up the last of his things, and we never saw him again. I'm so sorry. I'm not laughing at the fact that that lady fell. That's horrible. I know that's really scary when people that are older and frail fall. I'm laughing at the fact that I could 1000% clear as day picture the old woman in my head. I know what I saw. Don't question me. Okay, I have no doubt that Mr. H was haunting everybody with his naked butt in that nursing home until his stuff was picked up. Love it. No doubt in my mind. This fifth story says, names changed for privacy, but if anyone who was there hears this, then they'll know. Love that. Thank you also for changing the names for us. Hello, my name is MJ, and I used to live in northern Texas, more specifically the Denton area. In Corinth/Denton, there is a place called Old Alton Bridge. It is also commonly called Goatman Bridge, and if you watch Ghost Adventures back in 2016-ish, you might have seen their investigation of the area, air quotes, because I don't really believe those paranormal TV shows. I have heard of Goatman Bridge, not because of Ghost Adventures, but because of the podcast I listened to called Scared to Death. If I recall correctly, I am fairly confident they did a whole video about the stories and the legends of Goatman Bridge. I think I was the first among our friend group to figure out what it was and find the lore online in about 2010. So I told my friends and we all agreed to go and check it out. We eventually made a habit of going during the day or night, and I honestly never felt anything paranormal until the night of this specific story. Oh no. I am concerned for you already. Even in my skeptical ass, I'm not sure I would go to someplace that haunted outside at night. Eesh. I was with a different group of friends, and we were just kind of hanging out on the bridge looking out over the small river. I remember seeing cloudy figures floating way off in the distance, but I think they might have been mirages or just tricks of the eye. My buddies were joking about something unrelated, but I wasn't listening. Suddenly, I felt this slight nudge, followed by a more forceful nudge on my left shoulder. I kind of smirked because I thought it was my friend Ryan messing around. I looked to my side to laugh at what I thought was a joke, but Ryan was next to me, staring at me with a concerned look on his face. He didn't miss a beat and said, "Let's go." And seeing as he had been the only one who had seen me get shoved, everyone else was a little confused, but we all made our way to the car, and our friend Lynn started driving us away from the area down the long, weirdly desolate road. I don't remember a lot of this part going forward, and I'm going off of things my friends told me, but I remember feeling suddenly panicked and didn't know what to do. As we drove, I was in the back seat, giggling and saying really creepy stuff and just being fucking weird. Relatable. We apparently got lost, which is odd because it's basically a straight shot down the road to 35, and I was in the back seat saying I knew where we were but wouldn't tell my friends where we were. Once we finally figured out directions, the next thing I fully remember after feeling panicked was being dragged out of Lynn's car by Ryan and looking over his shoulder and seeing their apartment's pool in the background. I thought, when the fuck did we get to Ryan and Jessica's apartment? Before I realized Ryan had me by the shoulders. I was really confused until everyone told me what happened, and for a long time, I figured I'd had a possessed moment and kept it in the back of my mind and never really mentioned it again. A couple of years ago, long after the bridge incident, I realized with the help of a mental health professional that I have DID. For those that don't know, DID is dissociative identity disorder. It used to be called multiple personality disorder, but that is no longer used. Along with realizing my triggers for certain alters to take over, I eventually figured out that it's more likely that I just switched because the shove freaked me out, and I guess I couldn't process it or deal with it due to childhood trauma, and that's why I can't recall the whole drive back to my friend's apartment. I'm generally a skeptic on paranormal stuff because my mother used ghosts and demons against me as a child so often that I don't buy into it anymore. Another favorite Goatman Bridge story of mine is the very last time we visited in 2018 before moving to a different city. We showed up well after midnight and nothing of significant importance happened, but we did get to see graffiti that said Goatman Orgy with an arrow pointing towards the bridge. Till this day, I will never know what we missed out on. That's fantastic. Also around the time of 2016 election and during the years after, there was constant anti-Trump graffiti all over the bridge, and it was honestly hilarious. And every time it was removed, there was just more to replace it. I have several other possibly paranormal stories, but this is the one I remember most vividly despite the switching. If you do end up reading this on your channel, then I hope you enjoy the story, and I hope you have a great day. Anonymous. Thank you, Anonymous. Oh my gosh. Crazy that it was a paranormal story mixed with a mental health issue story. Like, really interesting that your DID seemed to be, from what I understand, your DID was triggered by this possible paranormal event. But I don't blame, like, that makes perfect sense. Like, how scary would that be to feel like you got shoved and nothing was there? Like, yeah, that would at least trigger, that would trigger a panic attack in a lot of people, in my opinion. The only thing I could think of is, like, maybe did one of your friends do it? Did they shove you or touch you or something? And then they didn't admit that they did it and they wouldn't, like, give up but you'd think that after they saw you so upset, they would have admitted that it was a joke or whatever. So that's so cool that you live so close to such a paranormal, urban legends place, because I have heard of Goatman Bridge before. There's so many places haunted in America that I would go. Like I said, I don't know if I'd go someplace like that at night, just because outdoors at night really freak me out. I would go to a haunted house at night or go ghost hunting at night, like inside somewhere. But for some reason, places like that, it's not paranormal stuff. It's the fact that there's animals out there just freaks me out. I don't like the idea of mountain lions and bears and stuff. It's like very scary. Okay, let's read the last story for today. This is the 6th and final story. I've had many odd paranormal encounters, but I wanted to send you a situation where it has left a huge impact on me dealing with an actual person. In May 2019, my city normally hosts a Cinco de Mayo party in the downtown district area of our city. They would normally have many vendors, music, dancing, drinking, boat tours in many parts of the city where you would just have to get on a bus to go to those particular areas. My then girlfriend, now wife, my now stepdaughter, and I have been talking about this celebration to do something different. We went and had a good time. We met some new friends, and my daughter was able to enjoy a public event with a bunch of people without anxiety taking over her. Yay! That's always a big accomplishment. Before we decided to go out, we noticed that there was a small boat ride that takes you through a canal and discusses the history of the city. To give you an idea of the area, the canal sits in between the James River and a hiking trail and active train tracks. The tracks sit above the hiking trail. In between the canal and hiking trail, it used to be a patch of grass where people would sit and just enjoy the view or even a picnic. Remember that for later. The grass patch is about 30 to 40 feet from the distance we would be in on the boat. Normally the boat ride charges, but due to Cinco de Mayo, it was free of cost. We got on the boat and were enjoying the breeze and the atmosphere around us. About a mile into the ride, it arrives at the canal where the other tour boats have been making its tour. Everything seems normal and enjoyable in the canal ride until my stepdaughter asks my girlfriend and I about a black object on the grass. Once we focused in, we noticed and realized it was a white guy with all black on, squatting on the grass. My girlfriend didn't think anything about it, but for some reason I couldn't stop watching him. More people started noticing him, and we were kind of confused because the way he was squatting was as if he was trying to hide out of the hiking trail and road site, as if he was hiding. Weird. After about a minute or two, the man slowly got up and noticed that he had a book bag. He takes a black object out and tries to hide it from the boat goers. An older man starts to inform the boat driver about the man's actions while I sit on the closer side of the boat so that my daughter isn't able to see anything, thinking as if it were drugs or whatever. Then I focused more and realized that it was a gun. Without making it obvious, I told my girlfriend to stay close to me and not freak out while telling the others to inform the driver to call the police. The guy starts to hide even more from the public eye and starts to point at the boat and starts playing with the gun by holding it in different positions. Once he started doing that, everyone on the boat knew exactly what it was. Us and another boat full of people were stuck in the gun path of a person that seemed unsure what he was going to do next. That's terrifying. For about a minute or two, the boat driver was continually calling the police and urging other boats to not come into the canal, while the guy kept aiming at one boat to the next. Finally, the police came into the area, but before they left the car, he was able to throw the gun into the canal and start putting his book bag on without the police seeing him. They had him in cuffs to be detained almost immediately. The boat was able to get back into the canal, and we were finally on land again. For the following weeks, we researched any articles that may have more information, but nothing appeared, which seemed odd. Eventually, things went back to normal, but all three of us had a fear of being in a large crowd for some time afterwards. Yeah, I don't blame you at all. That would be so scary. I'm always considered as the protector, but never in my life had I felt so defenseless and scared that me and my family may or may not have survived if the man decided to go with murderous intentions. Too long, didn't read, was on a tour boat, man contemplating on shooting everyone on the boat. Continuously aimed guns at everyone. Man tossed the gun into a canal before being detained. Unsure if any charges happened. This person sent me a follow-up pic because they forgot to add pictures onto the last story. So they said, hopefully this is linked to the previous story. This is actually an idea of where the guy was standing. The first picture is the view of where the hiking trail / where the canal is. We'll put that picture up right now. The guy was standing on the right where the thicker rail post would sit. Ironically, he stood next to a high patch of grass where no one would see him. Also, I never explained the location, but this is in Richmond, Virginia at the Kanawha Plaza. The second picture is actually one of the boats that we sat in during this whole situation. That's terrifying. That's my worst nightmare. I'm so glad that guy was arrested, but what the hell? There's something about people that, like you said, like it was like he didn't know what to do next. There's something about that that's like even more frightening a lot of the times because it makes them more erratic and it makes them feel like they have a much shorter fuse and that like they don't know what they're going to do. So like it could be absolutely terrible and even worse than anybody could imagine, or they could, do what they did here and drop the gun in the river and get detained. I'm just so glad that nobody was hurt, but I can't imagine being in that situation, especially with your family and feeling scared for your family. It would be so horrible. I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Thank you so much for sharing the story, though. It was really interesting. Had never heard of this on like a tour boat before, so bizarro. Okay, friends, that is it for this story time video, listener scary stories. Directions for how to submit these stories will be down below. Please like the video. Hope you're enjoying these. I never expected these to get as many views as one of my main videos, and that's totally fine. I just wanted to add this as extra videos on my channel because I enjoy making them, love hearing your guys' stories, and I do feel like a lot of people still enjoy them, the people that do watch them. So yeah, okay, let's wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks to all of my patrons, especially. A link for that will also be down below. A special shout out to our top tier patrons, which are Colin Holmes, The Deck of Cards, Michelle Valdovinos, Tom L, Little Kittle Cat, Mitchell Schaefer Meyer, Mike, Alice Paul, Brittany Phillips, Momo Neon, Marita 144, Sage K, Elderly Hipster, The Puppy Hag, Rebecca Jackson, Toby, Carter, Kawakan Anime and Gaming Convention, Sarah the Crazy Fish Lady, Maxie, Ellison Luna, Tiny Mighty Bookworm, A Bunny apparently, Leon Vanek, Meg, Elliot Fink, I Am In Your Walls, Habromania, Cyberdog Investigations LLC, Vicky Cat, Amy B, Tickirch, Dead Without the E, Ball, Olivezilla, Chara, MH Dave, Ami, Lindsay R, Miss T, Lou Raccoon, Shauna R, El Magnificoco, Victor Schmiel, Laura Winter, Lilith, Dana, Ashes, Our Sick Ghost, and our newest top tier, Goshzilla.